Hello everyone. Today we have to deal with the topic poetic devices. Students, while understanding the poem or while preparing the poem for our exams, we must know which literary devices or poetic devices are used by the poet to enhance the beauty of the poem. Yes, you must be knowing appreciation, that is poetic appreciation question. In that question also, you must know what devices or what poetic devices are used by the poet in that particular poem. So, it is art of that poet how to use important and varied poetic devices. Now, let's see what is meant by poetic devices. Students, meaning of poetic device is it is a literary device, and these devices are used, essentially these are the tools used by a poet to create rhythm or enhance a meaning or intensify mood or feeling contained in the poem. Students, what are the poetic devices? First poetic device we must see is rhyme. Rhyme means what? Rhyme means repetition of similar sounding words occurring at the end of line in the poem. Second poetic device is figure of speech. Figure of speech, it is a form of expression used to convey meaning or heighten the effect. With the help of rhyming scheme, that is our first poetic device, with the help of this device, poet try to bring the musical quality. If poem is very rhythmic, or even if we listen to the music song, we feel that how important rhyming is there. So, for understanding it or how to find out the rhyming scheme or rhyming pairs from the given poem, let's see one example taken from our 12th standard poem. Here we have taken one stanza. Stanza is without either sign or sound of their shock. Second line, the waves flowed over the inch-cape rock. Third line, so little they rose, so little they fell. Fourth line, they did not move the inch-cape rock. Students, for concentrating upon our topic, that is rhyming scheme or rhyming words or pairs, you have to see the last, that is ending word of every line. You will find that first line ends with word shock. Second line ends with word rock. You can see the ending sound of both the words. Here, shock, if we denote it by small alphabet A, obviously if shock and rock are matching with each other at the end, that means the same alphabet A should be taken for denoting second line's rhyming scheme, that is again A. If we go to the next line, students, this last word of this third line is fell. Fell is not matching with first two lines. That is why we have to denote the rhyme scheme of this word with another alphabet, that we have to take B. Then come to the next line. The last line of this stanza ends with the word bell. Obviously, fell and bell are matching with each other. If we have denoted fell with B, and now obviously we have to denote bell, that last line, with B. The rhyming scheme of this stanza will be A, B, B. While giving or answering the question, find out the rhyming scheme of the whole stanza, you have to give the answer, that is the rhyming scheme of this stanza is A, B, B. In this way, if question is asked to give the rhyme scheme of the next stanza, you have to specify every stanza and then you have to give the rhyming scheme of every stanza in the same manner. Students, after finding the rhyming scheme of the stanza, you may have the question like, give the rhyming words or pairs from the stanza. Now, which words are, with the help of which words we have find the rhyme scheme? Yes, shock and rock. They are matching with each other. That means they both are considered a pair. That means one pair from this stanza will be shock, rock. Second pair from the same stanza will be fell, bell. So students, is it clear? If rhyming scheme is asked, you have to give answer in a form AABB, that is the scheme, and if rhyming words or pairs are asked, then you should answer like this: shock, rock, comma, fell, bell. Means one pair and second pair. I hope it is very clear about the rhyming scheme question, which will help you to answer this activity, that is poetic device. Now let's turn to the figures of speech. Many figures of speech are covered in your whole syllabus. Now we will go step by step. First, as we have seen the meaning of figure of speech, I am going to revise. It is a form of expression used to convey meaning or heighten the effect. Heighten means to increase, to enhance, to bring more effect in that particular poem. So what are the figures of speech? Let's discuss. Students, now as we are going to see figures of speech, let's see the very first one, that is simile. What is meant by simile? Simile is very easy figure of speech and commonly found in every poem. Nearly almost in every poem you can find example. So we have taken this example from our second poem, that is Indian Weavers. So simile means when direct comparison is given by using the word like, as, or so. So here you can find white as a feather. You can find that this comparison is given. It is the comparison between cloth and feather. So what is the common factor in both the things? What thing or what quality is compared? The color, that is white color of cloth and feather, is compared by the poet in this line. So have you understood about simile? Again, what is in the simile? Direct comparison by using the word like, as, or so. So white as a feather. This is the example. Students, while writing in the exam or while answering this type of question of figure of speech or poetic device, the question may be given like this activity. Find out or identify the figure of speech in the given line. If this example is given, you can easily find out that this is the example of simile. But remember, you have to give the explanation. That means why this is a simile. So while writing the explanation of that example, you must write direct comparison is given. Is it clear? Now let us come to the second figure of speech, metaphor. Yes, metaphor is also based on comparison. But in metaphor, you will find it is not the direct comparison. It is indirect comparison or implicit comparison. When something is given the quality of some other object. See, you can see the example. She is the shining star. Here, shining star. Who is supposed as shining star? She. It is considered. The person is considered as a shining star. You can say it is implicitly compared. So, in this example, you can say that this is, the figure of speech here is metaphor. Second example, to make it very clear, laughter is the best medicine. This is also the example of metaphor. So this type of comparison, that is implicit or indirect comparison, is done by the poet in particular line of the poem, then it is called as the example of metaphor. Now let us come to the third figure of speech. It is personification. The word personification itself tells us something about the meaning of that figure of speech. Personification means the object which is not a person may be given the quality of a person. See the example, stars are dancing. Is it possible for stars to dance? No, it is the quality of a person, but it is allotted to the stars. That is, dancing quality is given to stars. That means stars are personified. That is why this figure of speech is known as personification. Next figure of speech is, students, alliteration. Again, this is very commonly found example. Figure of speech in every poem almost you can get the example. Let's take weavers weaving at the break of a day. Which word is repeated? Which sound is repeated? Sound of W is repeated. See, what is the alliteration? Alliteration is a figure of speech in which sound at the beginning of the word is repeated in the same line. This repetition should be at least for 2 times. Minimum requirement is at least 2 times it should be repeated. Like he hit his head against the beam. You can see how many times sound of H is repeated. He hit his head against the beam 4 times. In this example, sound of W is repeated for 2 times. So it is the example of alliteration. While explaining this figure of speech, you have to say sound of, you should quote it like sound of W is repeated. In this way, you have to explain this figure of speech in the exam. Next figure of speech is, students, repetition. Repetition, some common factor is there between alliteration and repetition. Here, repetition was there, but the repetition of sound was there. Now, repetition figure of, in this particular figure of speech, you will find the repetition of the word. Means same word in the same line, it should be repeated. Then only you can say it is the example of repetition. Again, minimum requirement of repetition is at least 2 times it should be repeated. So word wish wish. This example, wish wish of washing machine. Students, word wish is repeated 2 times. That is why this is called as the example of repetition. Next figure of speech is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia, it indicates sound. This figure of speech is used by the poet when it is considered when some sound indicating word is given in the line of the poem, then it is called as onomatopoeia. Students, example here is lightning crackles and thunder rumbles. Lightning crackles and thunder rumbles, you will find crackle word or rumble word, these are the indicators of the sounds. So if poet uses these type of words in the line of the poem, then they are known as examples of onomatopoeia. So is it clear about onomatopoeia? Sound indicating word is given in the line of the poem, then it is called as onomatopoeia. Next figure of speech we have to see. Students, our next figure of speech is transferred epithet. What is meant by epithet? Epithet is an adjective. Adjective which qualifies the noun. That word is known as adjective. But in this particular figure of speech, you can find that adjective from one noun is shifted or transferred to some another noun. And this type of practice is followed or done by the poet in particular line, then we can say that that line is the example of transferred epithet. Let's see the example. But even in his dying fear. Here, dying is the adjective, and actually the person who is dying, that from that person means that particular noun, this dying adjective is transferred to fear. That means it is shifted. Transferred epithet. The name itself defines the meaning. That means when adjective is shifted, then it is called as transferred epithet. I think it must be clear with this example. The next figure of speech is apostrophe. Apostrophe means direct address. To whom? to the absent or to the dead person, or sometimes it might be the direct speaking with the Almighty, like, oh God. In this expression, you can say that the use of apostrophe is done. Students, let's see the example from our textbook. O crest, it is the Inchcape rock. In this line, you can find that poet is directly communicating with the Almighty, that is Christ. So, this is the example of apostrophe. I think it is very clear. We have seen simile, metaphor, personification, alliteration, repetition, transferred epithet, and apostrophe. Thank you so much.